KK Reaper.
And I'm Lunar Reaper.
And this is A Frightful Eve. This evening, we will be reviewing Saw 10, about John Kramer, who travels to Mexico for a risky and experimental medical procedure, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. Armed with a newfound purpose, the infamous serial killer uses deranged and ingenious traps to turn the tables on the con artists.
But first, the horror news.
The 2020s have seen many of our childhood favorites turned into twisted versions of themselves so they may be formatted for the horror genre. Although there have been some that fall flat, one stands out with some promise. Long gone are the days of emerald cities and yellow brick roads. In this dark reimagining of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy Gale is now an elderly woman, broken by years of paranormal entanglement with a mystical realm. You can watch Gale, Stay Away from Oz, exclusively on the Chilling app now.
Continuing on with our support of small businesses during this horrific holiday season, we give the spotlight to something all of us that keep it spooky all year round can appreciate. Xchange is an independent alternative clothing haven in Seattle. Think of goth heaven. With modern, festival, rave, and other elaborate fashion designs, there's something for every nightcrawler.
Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey once again prepares for its Fright Fest season, but with even more thrills and chills this year. In addition to the staple haunted houses Six Flags has hosted for years, they will be adding two new ones based on The Conjuring and Saw 10. Dare to enter the secluded farmhouse of the Perron family that has been terrorized and plagued by sinister spirits? Or experience the return of Jigsaw as you attempt to survive his ingenious and terrifying traps in the untold chapter of his most personal game yet. Tickets are on sale now.
Horror will be covering all holidays this year. Who would have thought Easter would be on the menu? Easter Bloody Easter is the story of an all-American folklore creature called the jackalope, who is on a killing rampage along with an army of bunnies from hell. Only one woman, played by Diane Foster, is up to the task of bringing this hellscape to an end.
It is always a blast when the convention comes to town. New Jersey HorrorCon and Film Festival will be scaring up the halls of the Showboat Hotel in Atlantic City once again, October 20th through the 22nd. Among the horror fans and vendors will be horror celebrities such as Alex Vincent and Christina Lees from the Child's Play franchise, Ken Segois and Jennifer Rubin from A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and even Skid Row members Dave the Snake Sabo and Rachel Bolin, to name a few. Get your weekend passes and join the best of the genre New Jersey has to offer.
The Scream franchise is so iconic amongst all fans and was a successful close to the story we had last March. Who's to say the excitement is over? For now, these are promising rumors from reliable sources that are hinting the real possibility that the creators of memorable games such as Until Dawn are working on a ghost-faced video game. Let's keep the phone close and the ringer on while we wait for upcoming details.
For more information on these events, check out the links in the description below.
And now for the review of Saw 10.
Well, this was a pleasant surprise.
Yes.
I must say.
Yes.
Despite the little issue at the end, everything else
Still gross us out as usual.
Yes.
There will always be something about watching a Saw movie that I'll sit there and think, what is wrong with us? Like, these are the type of movies that make me think, like, wow, we have to be some type of messed up to, like,
when you looked at me
these
in the movie theater and was like, what is wrong with us? So it was like, you know, That's a valid point.
What part was that? I think it was the saw, the leg. The leg. Watching that, I was like, what is wrong with
the ghillie saw? That was brutal.
That was...
Everything about this movie, really, I mean, this pulls out all the stops for something that is... I know that Saw has always been graphic and grotesque, but
Severely.
Something about this one in particular just really felt like it went to the nines, yeah. And I don't know, it's been a while since I've seen a lot of the Saw franchise.
Okay.
So maybe my memory is a little fuzzy, but it definitely feels like it kind of outdoes itself in a lot of these traps and kills.
I know it was theoretical, but the eye vacuum.
Oh yeah. Even just being theoretical, I was like, that's rough. I did not know going into it what that trap was supposed to be. Because it's the movie poster.
Like if something's gonna pour in the tubes or something?
I thought it was something going into the tubes.
Got it.
Did not realize it was something coming out of the tubes.
Ooh, yeah, that was something.
But anyway, let's start at the beginning.
A very good place to start.
Yes. So, I did have to do a little bit of background research. Again, the last couple of Saw movies were fuzzy. I didn't realize that this was in between Saw 1 and Saw 3, somewhere in the timeline.
Yes, I think we were both on that page.
Mm-hmm. Well, technically, I guess somewhere after Saw 3, because near around it, because Amanda is still part of that film.
Yes.
And I believe you mentioned she is the one that gets the needle pit in the third one.
Amanda was in the needle pit. She was taken by Jigsaw, an addict, and I think that's why she particularly had a soft spot to, forget what her name was. It wasn't Valentina. I forget the character. Gabriella. She was definitely soft for Gabriella because obviously empathy is there. Mm-hmm. And she was definitely one to pull the stunts. Fun fact, she was actually 4 months pregnant when she performed that jump into the pit. The crew didn't know, so she had to be extra careful.
Really?
Yeah, true facts.
Wow.
Good to know.
That's some dedication.
Oh, no. She's an artist.
On behalf of the baby and all.
To my knowledge, everyone's okay, but
That's
good. Jumping into the pit, the crew used real syringes that they took all the needles out and used like rubber malleable tips.
I would
obviously, but that's still like, jumping into a pit of plastic, that does not tickle.
Oh, no, that's definitely doing all your own stunts in general in most of these types of films is going to be a toll on your body.
Little ouchies.
Yes. But I mean, she's great in that one. She's great in this one, and so is John Kramer. This movie, I feel like, for all the Saw franchise, the idea is always teaching them a lesson. He's never the killer. It's always them making the choice.
Yes.
Even though they have to play the game.
Yeah.
But the reason that they're there at all is because they did something that was morally reprehensible, and they're there to learn their lesson, essentially.
Yes.
So it paints John Kramer and whoever's in charge of the traps as like an anti-hero, so to speak. Because most of the villains that, or I shouldn't say villains, but most of the criminals, in whatever degree that they're in, they're there because they did something, pretty rough.
Yes. This is one of those franchises that it kind of brings me to the power of perspective, where you can even debate the idea of, in literature, there's a false narrator, such as, things like the book Lolita, where this man's perceiving this young girl that's seducing him, but it's really just him misinterpreting things, or like his opinion or his moral compass. So, to our knowledge, and especially in Saw 10, this is one of those these are bad people doing bad stuff, where I always wonder, I was like, what if this guy just has a terrible perspective on things?
Right.
Or he's wrong place, wrong time sort of person. Like, I think about these a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think that this one in particular does well compared to the rest of the series, because even when they open it with the custodian that is stealing from one of the patients, the fact that John Kramer's thinking about sucking his eyeballs out
and breaking his fingers
seems severely more drastic than stealing a couple of watches and jewelry. That seems like typical Jigsaw stuff where it's like a little bit over the top for what they did, depending on the person. Some of them, throughout the series really, really deserved it. But this one, everyone was in on this huge thing that was horrible.
Yes, if there's anything we can agree on, it's don't steal from people dying of cancer and then lie about curing them. So this was definitely one of those where you're like, oh, these people suck.
Oh, yeah. This was very, like, black and white as far as, like, you really didn't feel... The only person that you did feel bad for, and it was the same person that Amanda felt bad for, was Gabriella, because she was kind of less in the mix, I feel like, than anyone else, and she was just there because she needed the money because she was addicted.
Yeah.
Which again, like John Kramer goes into the whole thing about how it's her choice and her decision, and that's kind of one of those moral conflicts of, like, addiction being...
Very complicated.
Right, yeah.
Very, very complicated.
And as Amanda has proven, But as for, that I think that the traps that they were set in were justifiable to the degree of how they were implemented in the heist.
Right.
The fact that what was Vanessa was the one that got the leg cut off?
Valentina?
Valentina, yeah.
It's all coming back to me now.
Right, and yeah, right. And Matteo and all those guys like had much of a larger part in that, and that's why their deaths were so much more brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel so bad that Valentina, even though as bad as her crime was, she was like a moment close to.
Oh yeah, no, that was so painful to watch. That like seconds down on the clock, and I was like, oh, she made it, and
her screaming like, I'm not gonna make it.
Right.
I'm like, oh God.
You did all that work for nothing.
Oh my God, yeah, no.
And see now, this kind of comes into the how this movie turns it up to 11 as far as like the brutality. The fact that they used her intestines to get the table.
I think that was messed up. Saw has always been messed up. It's not that it was particularly turned up from usual, but I do think they did that to emphasize the main doctor, like how messed up she was and how dedicated she is for her own survival and all that stuff. Like, I do think that was necessary for her to be like, wow, that was your employee and you were literally using disemboweling her to get your cell phone.
Right, yeah.
So bad.
Yeah. But that, I think that those are the aspects of this film that make it so much heavier on the gore and the blood and the guts and the brutality of it all than some of the previous entries.
Yep.
And I know that we always bring up this movie.
We're fans.
In some way or another. But I did see, it was a post from one of the producers, Steven, for Terrifier, talking about how there was many fans saying that Terrifier 2 was kind of like the opening the floodgates to allowing this level of gore and craziness to happen on the big screen more so than it has in the last couple of years. So I don't know, I feel like some credit is due there. I do feel like this is probably up there with that, with people getting sick in the theater and, barf bags being handed out, where that was not the case for a very long time since we've been watching horror movies.
I suppose. I think I would be more, I don't disagree with that, but I would be more inclined if Saw was particularly reserved, but because it's never really been it's always been a body horror genre that I don't think that there's something about Saw X for me that I'm like, this is different than the other ones. It's always been good and it's always been graphic and it's always been disgusting. Mm-hmm. So, but maybe it is more recognizable in cinema. Maybe more people will come because of movies of Terrifier.
Like what
Terrifier
can push
2.
the limits, I think.
Maybe.
I think that's more so it. I don't think it's that it hasn't been done before to a certain extent. I think it's just to the level that it's being done now.
We've all been numbed enough that now we can take it.
Right. At least us. I mean, obviously they're handing out barf bags, so there's some people that are coming in as newcomers witnessing true atrocity.
You know what? This is a test of who your friends are. You should really watch the trailer before you go see the movie when your friends say, trust us on this one.
Right.
Maybe do some research first.
And now, just a quick side note, but I just think about the fact that, you know, when Barbie and Oppenheimer came out, there was Barbenheimer, and there was all this talk about, like, oh, forget Barbenheimer, now let's go for Saw Patrol, because Paw Patrol came out at the same time.
Oh my gosh, no.
And I just, knowing what is in Saw now, and then thinking about paralleling that to Paw Patrol is hysterical to me.
Oh my god. Oh, Jesus. You all are terrible parents.
Oh man. So, I guess we can bring it to our final thoughts, our ending sequence here.
Yes.
Where this is where the defining factor came in on our rating. I feel like.
The ending.
Yeah. I feel like we were on the same page, and then that ending was what like divided us as far as like whether or not it would make it stay the same rating or significantly drop it.
Yes, I wasn't livid, but I was obviously someone that you want to see harm come to.
Right.
Just have her head stuck out of this like window thingy. I was like, aw.
Yeah. And I
want to see her get chopped up.
it was one of those elements that if it was done any differently, I wouldn't have been as frustrated by that if the ending didn't feel so rushed.
It felt rushed.
Yeah, like it felt like that whole sequence of her fighting her boyfriend and him, you know, going to the wind with the toxic gas. And then her sticking her head out and she was like, "Kramer!" And then they just walk out into the sunset. And I was like, was there a section of movie that they forgot to put in? Like, that just seemed kind of odd to me. It felt like it ended very abruptly. And then to have a end credits scene, which also is the first in the franchise. Apparently they've never done that before.
Oh, never had a scene
after credit, yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. And that was an interesting little, like, you know, tip of the hat to the private investigator.
Yes.
That is also a team member of
John Kramer.
John Kramer.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've only been saying his name this entire last 20 minutes. You know, it was a nice tip of the hat because you get a couple of the phone calls and stuff with him in the flashbacks, but nothing else. So you finally get to see the reveal. But for that to happen and for that ending to be as just throwaway as it was, seemed like such a disservice to everything that led up to it.
Yeah, I was hoping that, was it you? We were discussing it and we were hoping that little flap that she was able to breathe air would just like
Be a secondary trap or something,
come
or a
down
guillotine.
or something.
Right, yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
But
Well, a guillotine would have been too cut and dry. That would have been like an unwinnable game, which is not Kramer's
you know
style.
what? I don't want her to win.
Yeah, right.
But I see that. I think we've concluded that this is one of those scenes to make the story go on.
Yeah.
So we shall see where our young grasshopper moves on because the student has now become the master, apparently.
Yes. Well, that's...
Amanda moves on.
You know, reading through some of the articles, it seems like, based on what I read, the producers of Saw 10 want to move in that direction to some degree, or at least have a follow-up to that ending somewhere along I'm sure I have a gut feeling that Saw 11 is going to start with that sequence, and then fast forward to John Kramer's dead, Amanda takes the helm and finds that doctor again and traps her in something else, and that's where she dies, and she's the first victim in the 11th installment. That's my bet.
Good job.
Thanks. But as far as, that seems a little bit like, okay, well, at least she'll bite it. But I do like the fact that Amanda's going to seemingly take the helm.
I do like it. It was very nice. There were certain moments in this movie where I forgot what we were watching, because watching John Kramer battle with his cancer, you get invested in that, and I'm like,
yeah.
This is a horror movie? What? I just got excited. This guy went to this medical retreat, that he's gonna be okay.
Yep.
And then the moments with him and Amanda and the investment and her care for him and his plan and his dedication to her taking over the business, it's very heartwarming.
Yeah. I think that also gives more depth to their relationship in general in the other movies.
She really owes her life. In her opinion, her life would be over if it wasn't for John Kramer, and that's why they dedicate to the cause, because if she didn't get thrown into a pile of needles, I guess she never would have gotten sober.
Right.
Luna!
And here we are. Thanks, John.
KK and Luna Reaper.
What, Bartholomew?
What is the final verdict?
Saw 10 brings on an extra helping of brutality to the franchise while still keeping you on your toes and finding innovative ways to the classic final game reveal without rehashing the same tropes from throughout the series.
Although the ending isn't quite as satisfying as most would hope, it otherwise nails the narrative and billing John Kramer as a true anti-hero through great acting, a well-planned plot progression, and truly heinous kills. And for that, we give this film an 8 out of 10.
That's our show. Thanks for tuning in.
And until next time, Ghosts and Ghouls, have a frightful eve.